December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The roar of engines filled the morning sky as Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanaka gripped the controls of his Mitsubishi S6M0. Below him, the harbor gleamed like a sheet of glass in the early sunlight. Battleships sat peacefully, unaware of the storm descending upon them. Tanaka! Stay in formation! Captain Yamamoto's voice crackled through the radio, sharp and commanding. Hiroshi's hands trembled on the stick. Through the canopy, he could see the other planes in his squadron diving toward their targets, releasing their payloads with deadly precision. Explosions erupted below, fire, smoke, chaos. Tanaka, engage. What are you waiting for? Yamamoto's voice grew urgent. Hiroshi's finger hovered over the trigger. His target was clear, a destroyer anchored near Ford Island. He could see sailors scrambling on deck, their faces turned upward in horror. One young man, barely 20, froze and locked eyes with him through the distance. In that split second, Hiroshi sought his younger brother, Kenji. His breath caught. His finger refused to move. Tanaka! Fire! Instead, Hiroshi pulled up sharply, banking away from the harbor. He flew over the chaos, his bombs still attached, his gun silent. 3 hours later, Carrier Akagi, Pacific Ocean. The deck was electric with celebration. Pilots climbed from their cockpits, fists raised, shouting victory. But when Hiroshi landed, the mood around his plane turned cold. Captain Yamamoto stormed toward him, his face twisted with rage. You disgrace the Emperor! You disgrace your family! Hiroshi unbuckled slowly, his movements mechanical. He stepped onto the deck and stood at attention, eyes forward, saying nothing. You failed to engage your target. You returned with a full payload. Explain yourself, Lieutenant. Hiroshi's jaw tightened. I saw something, sir. What? American cowardice? Their weakness? No, sir. Hiroshi's voice was barely audible. I saw my brother. The surrounding pilots fell silent. Yamamoto's eyes narrowed. Your brother is in Osaka, training with the reserves. You're speaking nonsense. Not literally, Captain. Hiroshi finally met his superior's gaze. But that sailor, he was someone's brother. Someone's son. Just like Kenji. Yamamoto's hand flew across Hiroshi's face, the slap echoing across the deck. You've lost your mind. Or worse, your honor. That night below deck, Hiroshi sat alone in the cramped quarters, staring at a photograph. In it, his family stood outside their home in Kyoto, his father, stern and proud in his old Imperial Army uniform, his mother, gentle hands folded, his younger brother Kenji, grinning with youthful innocence, and his sister Yuki, holding a small bouquet of cherry blossoms. The door slid open. Lieutenant Daichi Sato entered, his expression unreadable. Unlike the others, he didn't come with anger, but with curiosity. They're calling you a coward, Daichi said quietly, sitting across from him. I know. They're saying you'll be court-martialed when we return to Japan. I know. Daichi leaned forward. So why? Why throw everything away? Your honor, your family's name. Hiroshi set the photograph down carefully. Tell me, Daichi. When you fired today, what did you see? My duty. My orders. But what did you see? Daichi hesitated. Targets. Strategic objectives. I saw faces. Hiroshi's voice cracked slightly. I saw a boy who looked like Kenji. And I thought, if our roles were reversed, if Japanese ships were anchored in Tokyo Bay, and American planes came, would I want mercy for my brother? War doesn't work that way, Hiroshi. There is no mercy. Maybe there should be. Daichi stood, his expression troubled. You know they won't understand. Yamamoto wants you transferred or worse. He thinks you're weak. I'm not weak, Hiroshi said firmly. I've flown 30 missions. I've faced death. But today I chose differently. Chose what? Treason? Hiroshi looked up, his eyes clear and unwavering. I chose to remain human. 2 days later, Commander's quarters. Hiroshi stood before Vice Admiral Nagumo, flanked by 2 guards. The admiral sat behind a simple desk, reviewing reports with cold efficiency. Lieutenant Tanaka. Your commanding officer has recommended immediate reassignment. Some suggest execution for cowardice in combat. Nagumo's voice was ice. I understand, sir. Do you? Nagumo set down the papers. Do you understand what your actions mean? That while your brothers fought and bled for the Empire, you flew in circles like a frightened child? I was not frightened, sir. I was conflicted. Conflict is a luxury soldiers cannot afford. Nagumo stood, hands clasped behind his back. However, executing you creates paperwork and questions. Instead, you will be transferred to a special reconnaissance unit operating in the Aleutian Islands. You will fly alone. You will gather intelligence. You will not engage unless directly attacked. Hiroshi's eyes widened slightly. Sir? Consider it mercy you don't deserve. Or perhaps a slower execution. Those waters are unforgiving, and the Americans patrol heavily. Nagumo leaned in close. But if you fail there, if you show cowardice again, there will be no trial. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Then you leave at dawn. Dismissed. Dawn, December 10, 1941, departure. As Hiroshi prepared his new Zero for the long flight north, Daichi approached one final time. They're sending you to die slowly, Daichi said bluntly. I know. But you're going anyway. Hiroshi secured his flight suit, checking each strap carefully. What else can I do? Desert? Disgrace my family further? Daichi pulled something from his pocket, a small carved wooden crane. My mother made this for good luck. She said cranes represent hope and healing. He pressed it into Hiroshi's palm. Maybe you'll need it more than I will. Hiroshi stared at the tiny figure, his throat tight. Thank you, my friend. Don't thank me yet. Just come back alive. Even if no one else wants you to. They bowed to each other deeply, respectfully. Then Hiroshi climbed into the cockpit, started the engine, and lifted into the gray morning sky, heading toward the frozen north and an uncertain fate. Behind him, the carrier grew smaller. Ahead, only clouds and cold ocean stretched endlessly. And somewhere in that vast emptiness, Hiroshi wondered if choosing humanity over duty would cost him everything or save him from losing his soul. December 18, 1941, Dutch Harbor, Aleutian Islands. The cold bit through Hiroshi's flight suit like 1,000 needles. For 8 days, he had flown reconnaissance missions over these desolate, fog-shrouded islands, charting American positions, photographing installations, reporting back to a command that barely acknowledged his existence. His radio crackled with the usual encoded transmission. Seabird 7, report status. Seabird 7 operational. Visibility poor. Continuing patrol pattern Echo 4, Hiroshi responded mechanically. No reply. Just static. They never asked how he was. Never questioned his loyalty again. They had simply erased him, assigned him to die quietly in this frozen wasteland. Below, through breaks in the fog, he spotted the small American outpost on Unalaska Island. He banked slightly, his camera clicking automatically, capturing images of supply depots, radar installations, and troop movements. Then he saw it, a small fishing boat, limping through rough waters. Not military. Civilian. And it was sinking. 300 feet above the dying boat. Hiroshi circled lower, his heart racing. Through the spray and chaos, he could see 3 figures clinging to the tilting vessel, 2 men and what looked like a young boy, maybe 12 years old. They were Aleut natives, likely caught in the crossfire of war that had invaded their isolated home. One of the men waved frantically, not at rescue, but at Hiroshi's Zero, trying to signal they were civilians, unarmed, desperate. Protocol was clear: ignore non-military targets. Report and continue mission. But Hiroshi saw the boy slip into the icy water, saw the father dive in after him. His hand moved to the radio. "Command, this is Seabird 7. I have visual on civilian vessel in distress. 3 persons, possibly natives. Requesting. Seabird 7, disregard civilian activity. You are not rescue. Continue mission. But they're dying. That is not your concern. Maintain patrol." The radio went dead. Hiroshi stared down at the scene. The father had reached the boy but was struggling against the current. The second man on the boat was trying to throw a rope, but the vessel was breaking apart. Not my concern. Just like Pearl Harbor wasn't about faces, just targets. But he had made a choice then. Could he unmake it now? Hiroshi checked his fuel gauge enough to reach the emergency landing strip on Attu Island if he didn't waste time. He looked down again. The boy's head went under. "Damn it all," Hiroshi whispered. He pushed the stick forward, diving low over the water. His Zero roared past the sinking boat, and he released his emergency supply canister, the one containing survival gear, flares, and a small inflatable raft. The canister splashed down 20 yards from the boat. The man on deck saw it, dove in, and started swimming. Hiroshi circled once more, watching until the man reached the canister, pulled the raft's release cord, and the bright orange raft inflated. The father dragged the boy to it, hauling him aboard. The second man helped pull them both to safety. For a moment, 3 faces looked up at the Zero circling above, not with fear, but with stunned confusion. Hiroshi dipped his wings once, then pulled up and disappeared into the clouds. That night, Attu Island Emergency Base. The outpost was barely a shelter, a few buildings carved into rock, manned by a skeleton crew of maintenance personnel. Hiroshi ate alone, as always, his rice and dried fish tasteless in his mouth. Sergeant Kenzo Fujimoto, the base's grizzled mechanic, sat down across from him uninvited. "You're the one they sent from Akagi," Fujimoto said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Heard you're a coward." Fujimoto sipped his tea, watching Hiroshi's reaction. "That's what they say." "Are you?" Hiroshi met his eyes. "I don't know what I am anymore." Fujimoto grunted, almost approving. "You know what I think? Cowards don't volunteer for reconnaissance in the Aleutians. Cowards hide. You're something else." "What's that?" "Confused, maybe. Or stupid." Fujimoto pulled out a worn photograph, a woman and 2 small children. "My wife and daughters. In Hiroshima. I haven't seen them in 18 months. Why are you showing me this?" "Because you need to remember what we're fighting for. Not for glory. Not for the Emperor's ego." He tapped the photograph. "For them. So they have a future." Hiroshi felt the weight of the wooden crane in his pocket, Daichi's gift. "And if protecting them means killing other people's families? Then we do what we must and carry the burden." Fujimoto stood, leaving the photograph on the table. "But the fact that you're asking the question? That means you still have a soul. Don't lose it out here, Lieutenant. It's the only thing worth keeping." December 22, 1941. Unexpected encounter. Hiroshi was running a routine patrol when his engine sputtered. The temperature gauge spiked, coolant leak. He had maybe 10 minutes of flight time before the engine ceased completely. Below was nothing but endless, frozen wilderness. No bases within range. No friendly territory. Command, Seabird 7. Engine failure. Attempting emergency landing. Static. Then, understood. Transmit final coordinates. Final. They expected him to die. Hiroshi spotted a relatively flat stretch of frozen tundra near a small frozen lake. He cut the engine, gliding in as smoothly as possible. The landing was rough, the Zero skidded across ice, one wing crumpling against a boulder, before coming to a violent stop. Hiroshi's head slammed against the canopy. Stars exploded in his vision. When he came to, blood trickled down his forehead, and his left arm screamed with pain. He forced the canopy open and stumbled out into the killing cold. Temperature had to be 20 below zero. Without shelter, he'd freeze in hours. He activated his emergency beacon and started walking toward a tree line in the distance, each step agony. 2 hours later, Hiroshi collapsed behind a fallen log, his body shaking violently. His arm was likely broken. His emergency supplies had been crushed in the crash. The wooden crane pressed against his chest, he'd kept it close, a reminder of friendship, of humanity. Is this how it ends? He thought. Frozen and forgotten in this wasteland? Then he heard voices. English. Hiroshi's hand moved instinctively to his sidearm, but his frozen fingers couldn't grip it. He peered over the log and saw 2 American soldiers trudging through the snow, rifles slung over their shoulders. One was tall and lanky, maybe 19. The other was older, with a thick beard and weary eyes. Think we'll find anything, Corporal Hayes? The younger one asked. Doubt it, Miller. Probably just another false alarm from those damn radar glitches. They were searching for him. Hiroshi could stay hidden, let them pass, and die slowly from cold and injury. Or he could reveal himself and become a prisoner, or more likely, be shot on sight. His body made the decision for him. He coughed violently, blood spraying onto the snow. Both soldiers spun, rifles raised. Contact! Contact! Miller shouted, aiming at the log. Hayes held up a hand. Wait. Listen. Another cough. Weak, wet, desperate. Hayes approached carefully, rifle trained forward. He rounded the log and stopped cold. Jesus Christ, he whispered. There, collapsed in the snow, was a Japanese pilot bleeding, shivering, barely conscious. His sidearm lay 3 feet away, unfired. Miller came up beside him. Jap pilot. We should. Should what? Shoot him? Hayes lowered his rifle. Look at him. He's half dead already. Hiroshi's vision swam. He tried to speak but managed only a whisper in broken English. Please, help. Hayes and Miller exchanged looks, the kind of look that soldiers share when faced with an impossible choice. We bring him in, we're heroes, Miller said slowly. First POW from the Aleutians. They'll pin medals on us. Or we leave him, and he dies. No one knows. Hayes stared at Hiroshi. But we know. 15 minutes later. Hiroshi drifted in and out of consciousness. He was aware of being lifted, of warmth, a blanket wrapped around him. Voices spoke above him, urgent but not cruel. Radio says transport's coming. We'll have him at base in an hour. Think he'll make it? If he wants to. Hiroshi's hand found the wooden crane in his pocket. He held it tight, a tiny piece of hope in the frozen darkness. Daichi, he thought. I think I understand now. Hope and healing aren't about forgetting the war. They're about remembering we're still human in the middle of it. His last conscious thought before darkness took him was strange, almost ironic. I was saved by the enemy. Just like I saved them. December 24, 1941, U.S. Army Field Hospital, Fort Mears, Dutch Harbor. Hiroshi woke to the smell of antiseptic and the sound of Christmas carols playing softly somewhere down a corridor. His left arm was in a cast, his ribs tightly wrapped. And 4 drip fed into his right arm. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then memory flooded back, the crash, the cold, the American soldiers. A nurse appeared beside his bed, middle-aged with kind eyes. She startled when she saw him awake, then composed herself professionally. You're in the hospital. You're a prisoner of war, she said simply, her English clear. Do you understand? Hiroshi nodded slowly. Yes. I understand. She checked his vitals with practiced efficiency. You were hypothermic. Severe dehydration, broken arm, 3 cracked ribs, and a concussion. You're lucky to be alive. Lucky, Hiroshi repeated, the word tasting strange. The nurse, her badge read Lieutenant Margaret Chen, paused. The soldiers who found you said something odd. They said you were clutching this. She held up the wooden crane, now cleaned but still worn. We almost threw it away, but Corporal Hayes insisted we keep it. Hiroshi's eyes filled with tears. He reached for it with his good hand, and she placed it gently in his palm. Thank you, he whispered. 2 days later, interrogation room. Major Robert Patterson sat across from Hiroshi, a file folder open between them. An interpreter, a Japanese-American corporal named Thomas Nakamura, stood to the side. Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanaka. Age 26. Imperial Japanese Navy. Formerly stationed on the carrier Akagi, Patterson read aloud. Is this accurate? Yes, sir. Patterson leaned back. You were at Pearl Harbor. It wasn't a question, but Hiroshi answered anyway. Yes. Yet according to your squadron's records, which we intercepted, you failed to engage your assigned target. Your commander recommended court-martial. Patterson's eyes narrowed. Why? Hiroshi remained silent. Lieutenant, you're a POW. You'll be treated according to the Geneva Convention, but cooperation will make your life considerably easier. Why didn't you fire? Through Nakamura's translation, Hiroshi finally spoke. Because I saw a face. Elaborate. On the destroyer. A young sailor. He looked like my younger brother. Hiroshi's voice was steady but quiet. And I thought, if someone attacked my brother, would I want mercy? Would I want someone to see him as human, not just a target? Patterson studied him for a long moment. So you disobeyed orders because of sentiment? No, sir. I disobeyed orders because of conscience. There's no room for conscience in war, Lieutenant. Then maybe that's why wars never end, sir. The room fell silent. Nakamura translated carefully, and Patterson's expression shifted not to anger, but to something more complex. You know what's interesting? Patterson pulled out another document. 4 days ago, a fishing boat carrying 3 Aleut civilians, father, son, and uncle, was found adrift but alive near Unalaska. They reported that a Japanese plane dropped survival gear to them. He looked up. That was you, wasn't it? Hiroshi said nothing. You had no tactical reason to help them. You wasted supplies. You risked your mission. Yet you did it anyway. Patterson closed the file. I've interrogated 37 prisoners since this war started. You're the first one I can't figure out. Are you a coward? A saint? A traitor to your own cause? I'm just a man trying not to lose his soul, sir. Patterson stood. Well, Lieutenant Tanaka, your soul may have just saved your life. Because that Aleut boy you saved? His uncle works at this base, in the kitchen. When he heard a Japanese pilot was captured, he came to me with the whole story. Said he owed you his nephew's life. He moved toward the door, then paused. In war, mercy is rare. You've shown it twice now. That's either incredibly foolish or incredibly brave. I haven't decided which. January 15, 1942, POW Barracks. Hiroshi had been moved to a small prisoner compound with 6 other captured Japanese sailors from a submarine that had been sunk off Kiska. They kept their distance from him, whispering among themselves. Finally, one of them, Petty Officer Takeshi Ito, approached as Hiroshi sat alone, carving a piece of driftwood. Is it true? Ito asked bluntly. What they say about you? That you refused to fight at Pearl Harbor? Hiroshi didn't look up. Yes. And that you helped American civilians? They were natives. Not soldiers. Ito spat on the ground. You disgrace us all. You should have died honorably rather than become this thing. Hiroshi set down his carving, another small crane, rough but recognizable. Tell me, Ito. When you torpedo a ship, do you think about the men inside? Their families? Their dreams? I think about my duty. So did I. Every day since I joined the Navy. Hiroshi finally met his eyes. But duty without conscience is just obedience. And I've seen where blind obedience leads. To victory. To honor. To Pearl Harbor. To young men burning alive in ships. To children drowning in freezing water. Hiroshi's voice rose. I've seen it, Ito. And I decided I won't be the reason someone's brother doesn't come home. Ito's face reddened. Your own brother would be ashamed of you. The words struck deep, and Hiroshi looked away. Perhaps. But at least I could face him with my humanity intact. February 3, 1942. Unexpected visitor. Hiroshi was summoned to the commandant's office, confusion and dread churning in his gut. Had Tokyo demanded his execution? Was he being transferred to a harsher camp? Instead, he found Corporal Hayes waiting, looking uncomfortable in his pressed uniform. Corporal, Hiroshi said through Nakamura's translation. Why are you here? Hayes shifted his weight. I wanted to thank you. Officially. Thank me? Yeah. See, that Aleut kid you saved? His name's Peter Kuzikov. His uncle, Victor, told everyone what you did. And Peter. Hayes pulled out a letter. Peter wrote this. For you. Through Nakamura, Hiroshi listened as Hayes read. Dear Japanese pilot. I don't know your name, but my uncle says you saved my life when your people and my people are fighting. My father says you could have flown away, but you didn't. You helped us even though we are enemies. I am 12 years old. Before the war, I wanted to be a fisherman like my father. Now I don't know what I want to be, because everything is scary and confusing. But you showed me that even in war, people can still be good. Thank you for letting me live. I will remember you forever. Peter Kuzikov. Hiroshi's hands trembled. He took the letter, reading the careful English words himself, tears streaming down his face. Why are you showing me this? He asked quietly. Hayes looked at him with something like understanding. Because Miller and we almost left you to die. We almost walked away. But something made us help you. He paused. I think it's because we saw what you did for Peter. Victor told everyone on base. And when we found you, I thought, if this man values life even when it's his enemy, maybe we should too. He extended his hand. Hiroshi stared at it, this gesture of respect, of humanity, crossing the lines of war. Slowly, he reached out and shook it. You're still the enemy, Hayes said. But you're also a good man. I don't know how to hold both those truths, but I'm trying. So am I, Corporal. So am I. March 10, 1942. The letter home. Through the Red Cross, Hiroshi was finally allowed to write home. One letter, heavily censored, but a lifeline nonetheless. He sat for hours, pen hovering over paper, before finally writing. Dear Mother, Father, Kenji, and Yuki. I do not know if this letter will reach you, or if you will want to receive it. By now, you have surely heard of my disgrace, that I am a coward, a prisoner, a stain on our family's honor. I cannot defend myself in ways that would satisfy tradition. I can only tell you the truth. At Pearl Harbor, I saw a young American sailor, and I saw Kenji in his face. I could not fire because I could not kill my brother or someone else's brother. I chose mercy when the world demanded vengeance. Since then, I have been alone. Cast aside by my commanders, isolated by my fellow prisoners, forgotten by an empire that no longer claims me. But I have also been human. I saved a child from drowning. I accepted rescue from enemies who chose compassion over cruelty. I have held onto my soul when it would have been easier to lose it. Father, you taught me that honor is everything. But what is honor without humanity? What is duty without conscience? Kenji, if you are called to fight, remember this, the enemy you face has a family too. They dream, they fear, they love. Never forget that, even when you must do terrible things. I do not ask for forgiveness. I ask only that you remember I am still your son, your brother. And that I chose life over death, even when it cost me everything. With all my love. Hiroshi. He folded the letter carefully, knowing it might never arrive, or if it did, might be burned unread. But he had to try. April 20th, 1942, the revelation. Major Patterson called Hiroshi to his office again, his expression grave. Lieutenant, we've received intelligence from Japan through neutral channels. He slid a document across the desk. It's about your family. Hiroshi's blood ran cold. What happened? Your brother, Kenji. He enlisted early February 1942. He was assigned to the Naval Air Corps. Patterson paused. His first mission was 3 weeks ago. A bombing run on Port Moresby, New Guinea. Was? Hiroshi's voice cracked. His plane was shot down. He survived the crash but was badly wounded. Australian soldiers found him and brought him to a field hospital. Patterson looked directly at Hiroshi. Here's the part one thought you should know. The doctor who treated him was American Captain James Morrison, on loan from our forces. Morrison saved your brother's life. Hiroshi couldn't breathe. According to the report, Captain Morrison said something to Kenji after the surgery. He said, "Your enemy showed you mercy today. Remember that when you have the chance to show mercy to others." Patterson slid another paper forward. That doctor? His younger brother was on the USS Arizona at Pearl Harbor. He survived but was badly burned. The room spun. Hiroshi gripped the edge of the desk. Do you understand what I'm telling you, Lieutenant? Patterson's voice was soft. You chose mercy at Pearl Harbor. Maybe you saved that doctor's brother. And that same doctor saved yours. The circle continues. Tears poured down Hiroshi's face. Is he alive? He's a POW in Australia. The Red Cross has his name listed. He's recovering. Patterson stood. I'm telling you this because I think you deserve to know that your choice mattered. That mercy isn't weakness, it's the only thing that stops the cycle of hatred. Hiroshi bowed deeply, unable to speak. There's one more thing, Patterson said quietly. Your letter home was delivered. We intercepted your father's response. He hesitated. He disowned you officially. But your mother sent a separate note. He handed Hiroshi a tiny piece of paper, smuggled through channels. In his mother's delicate handwriting. My son, your father's honor is wounded, but a mother's love cannot be broken. You did what your heart demanded. Kenji is alive because someone else's son shows mercy. Perhaps that is connected to your choice. I do not understand this war, but I understand you are still my child. Live. Please, just live. With eternal love, Mother. Hiroshi clutched the note to his chest, sobbing openly. June 1942, final scene. Hiroshi stood in the compound yard, teaching Corporal Nakamura how to carve the wooden cranes that had become his meditation, his prayer, his hope. Why cranes? Nakamura asked in Japanese. Because they represent hope. Healing. Long life. Hiroshi smiled softly. A friend gave me one before I left. Told me I might need it. He was right. Petty Officer Ito approached hesitantly. Since learning about Kenji's survival, news that had spread through the POW camp, his attitude toward Hiroshi had shifted. Tanaka, Ito said gruffly. I owe you an apology. I called you a coward. I was wrong. Hiroshi shook his head. You believed what you were taught. As did I, once. What changed? I saw faces instead of targets. I chose to remember we're all human, Japanese, American, it doesn't matter. We all bleed. We all love. We all want to go home. He held up the wooden crane. This war will end someday. But what kind of men will we be when it does? That's the question I ask myself every day. Ito bowed respectfully. Teach me. To carve. To remember. Hiroshi handed him a piece of wood and a knife. Then we begin. August 1945. The war ended. Hiroshi returned to Japan to find his home city scarred but standing. His father never spoke to him again, but his mother embraced him with tears of joy. Yuki married and named her first son after him. And Kenji, scarred but alive, stood waiting at the train station. The brothers stared at each other across the platform, years and pain between them. Then Kenji stepped forward and bowed deeply. You were right, brother. I saw it in that Australian hospital. The doctor who saved me, he could have let me die. But he chose mercy. Just as you did. They embraced, both weeping. I thought I'd lost my honor, Hiroshi whispered. No, Kenji said firmly. You never lost it. You just defined it differently than they wanted you to. And that took more courage than any battle. Hiroshi pulled out the worn wooden crane, now cracked and faded, but still intact. Hope and healing, he said softly. Hope and healing, Kenji repeated. Years later, Hiroshi would receive a letter from America from Peter Kuzikov, now a marine biologist, thanking him again and telling him about his children. And from Corporal Hayes, now a teacher, sharing that he told his students about the Japanese pilot who chose humanity over hate. The ripples continued, spreading outward, proving that even in the darkest times, one person's choice to remain human could change everything.